Hello, everybody. I just want to thank you so much for joining my live. Well, not really live, but we'll just pretend as if though I'm just really actually sitting in the living room with you doing a one-on-one session. How about that? So the topic of discussion that I want to discuss today is all about communication. Communication is so big, and even when I took a poll with different individuals who are in relationships or may have had troubles in relationships, they've always talked about communication being one of the biggest issues in their relationship. And I must agree that communication it's a really hard thing, because we all come from different walks of lives before we gather or come together as one. So communicating may not have been something that is done or had been done in your household or your significant other's household. Maybe talking about things just wasn't the big thing or wasn't a big deal. Maybe people just continued on with life without talking about things and just figured we'll sweep it under the rug, or maybe it'll just brush over. But in relationships and marriage, I must say that communication is big. Communication is what keeps us going when life starts to change, and when life is changing, and when we're having children, when we have to be responsible to keep home afloat and do things on a day-to-day basis that consists of our responsibility or us to be responsible to get it done. But then there's a union of marriage. There's a union of togetherness, the oneness, that it doesn't take that long to fall apart from the communication and oneness in a marriage or relationship when you're so distracted by the things of everyday life. So what I decided to do today is I decided to take on, actually I'm looking into a book. If you watch me on if you watch me on Facebook, I talked about using tools to help you develop in different areas where there may be lack in your relationships. I happen to be reading this one on tonight, which I want to refer to, which is Resolving Conflict in Marriage. And Resolving Conflict in Marriage, I must say, it is a good read, and I have been reading throughout it. But one particular chapter, which is in chapter 7, is entitled Talk About It. Marriage commandment number 4, thou shalt communicate. Yes, we must communicate. And why do we communicate? Because if we don't talk to each other, how in the world am I supposed to know what you're thinking? How in the world am I supposed to know exactly what your needs are outside of what I have become accustomed to? But there are other things that we don't talk about, and yes, we grow over time. We don't say the same people, and we grow over time. So therefore, there's more things to communicate about, even when we think that there's nothing to communicate about at all. Because guess what? The person that you married even a year ago is not the same person today. The person that you married 5-10 years ago is not the same person, not exactly the same person, should I say, as when you walked to the altar and said your I do's. So just to read a little bit into what chapter 7 talk about it. Just as a scenario, one time in a counseling session, I asked a woman if she knew when her marriage troubles had entered the serious stage. Sounds interesting. We don't think about how serious the issues are or the problems are until we're all in a place of explosion where everything is blowing up. We don't think about the fact that it is catapulted from one thing to the next, and we haven't talked about things much at all. We think that when we're arguing or when we have a dispute amongst each other, that's where the communication ends. Well, unfortunately, that is not a good thing. Or should I say, where the communication begins. Because we'll find that a lot of times that the communication that's had in an argument are things that are said based off of emotions and feelings, where we're feeling upset or angry or emotionally lacking with the emotion, or guess what? The person is not being sensitive to my emotions. So therefore, those troubles are really those that are piling up, whether we know it or not. We'll go about our day and not even think about the fact that we had a trouble, we had an issue, and we'll turn around 5-6 months later and we're arguing or having a dispute or disagreement about the same issue that was never resolved because we lack communication or how to enter into communication. So as the narrator, which happens to be my pastor Bishop Darrell Hines, he actually gave this information in this book. This is a book that he wrote. So it was a counseling session, and they asked the woman, when do you think the serious stage happened when it came to their troubles? She said, I know the precise moment. She said, when was it, he asked. She said, it was the day we both just sighed and walked away and decided the problem wasn't worth talking about anymore. Not a good place. Communication is vital to a marriage. It is the means to preventing most conflicts, and it is the means to keeping most conflicts from escalating. It is the way two people build understanding and become of one mind regarding the basic agreements that are at the very heart of our relationship or their relationship. So, with all of that being said, let me just read a little bit further. I think that this is interesting and can be very useful to you. Let me give you a very basic definition of communication as what it reads in the book. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, speech, and behavior. You communicate by what you say and by how you act, how you respond, how you behave. Man, that's big. We don't even think about the fact that our communication goes as far as an action. We just think that communication is based off of words. But let me be the first to tell you, after experiencing this for so many years, I didn't even think about my actions being communication. Nor do I think my husband thought about his action being a way of communicating with me. And even when there's nothing being said at all, just those symbols and signs speak to each other, and it could be in a positive way or a negative way. Let me read a little bit further. One of the most potent forms of communication is verbal communication. It is potent because it is the form of communication that has the potential for bringing about the greatest clarity of understanding. I must agree with you, Bishop and Pastor. He's both of those to me. That yes, it gives the greatest clarity of understanding. So if you and I, like we're talking right now in our one-on-one session, how do I know exactly what you're thinking unless I communicate with you? Communication is big, 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 and it's something that we cannot put down on the bottom of our to-do list when it comes to growing in our marriages, in our relationships. And let me finish by saying this. Gestures from raised eyebrows, as it says in the book, to shrugs of the shoulders are subject to a great deal of misinterpretation. One thing I always say is that, no, I don't want to text a person if it's something serious. You know how we do it. We text, and then, but guess what? The message that I initially wanted to get across, it comes out totally different. Excuse me. Somebody's trying to get me, but they know. Well, maybe they don't know because the session wasn't supposed to start until 8. But however, there's an misinterpretation when texting. Sometimes when you're saying something and you want to express something that's big, doing it via a text message isn't good. So being able to sit together and discuss an issue is the best interpretation when communicating to someone that you love. And especially if it's a message that you want to make sure that they have full understanding and it's clear to the other person. So walking out the room in a heat of an argument, throwing up your hands, grunting, crying, growling, staring at the ceiling, all these are signs that communicate. But exactly what is it communicated? It's often unclear. Staying away from home for several days, coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, wearing a shirt that has lipstick on the collar, dropping an unexplained key as you open your purse, or empty your pocket. All of these behaviors communicate, but not with clarity. There's a great deal for room for interpretation and misinterpretation. So my next question is, can you talk to your spouse? Can you talk to your spouse? Well, that may be tricky for most of us, or some of us, or maybe we think we figured it out. Maybe you feel as though I've been with this person for quite some time, or maybe before we got married we talked. But maybe the talking really wasn't answering all those questions. Maybe things hadn't gotten clear. Maybe things weren't clear. Because just think about it. Today you may be going through some issues where you're going back and forth, or where the energy isn't good. And then we must know that, just think about it. Take deep thought into it. We may be having some issues with communication. So today I'm going to actually stop right there with issues with communication, because I want to give you some things to think about. And I hope that you'll press replay on this video today, that you'll go back and you'll think about the issues that you may or may not have, and the communication that you may have been having or may need to have, because it's a big deal. Communication is what keeps us going. Communication is what we have to do even on our jobs day to day. We have to talk to deliver messages so that the other person on the other end can go ahead and perform the action, and vice versa. Communication is the biggest key when it comes to a marriage. We can love each other deeply and dearly, and we can grow together deeply and dearly. Yes, deeply. We can grow deeply. But there happens to be roadblocks when there is improper or misinterpreted communication. We need clarity so that we can grow. I hope you guys enjoyed this time with me, because I definitely did enjoy the time spending with this session one-on-one. You and I enjoyed that. And I want you to come back next week, Thursday, so that I can deliver another message. And I'll give you a little pointer as far as, well, I'll give you an idea of what we're going to talk about next. We're going to continue with communication. Yep, continue with communication. And we'll touch on, can you talk to your spouse? Oh, this is good stuff, y'all. I hate that I have to go right now, but I have to go, unfortunately. But I am excited about where your relationship will go after having these one-on-one sessions with Yaz, the Wife Coach. Thank you so much. Feel free to share with your family and friends, those who are engaged, those who are married, and even the seasoned ones. I'm open to discussing some things with those groups of individuals as well. Let's grow in our relationships. Let's grow in our marriages. Let's grow in communication with each other. Talk to you soon. May you be blessed. And I'll see you next week, Thursday. Have a great evening. Bye.